to order. Take a moment to recognize that this meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Lillooet people. I ask that someone please move approval of the agenda of this committee of the whole, moved by Director Hoppel, seconded by Director Herford. All in favor, any opposed, motion carries. There is no closed.
This one.
Okay, we talked about this. CAO verbal.
Not moving so fast. Hi, everyone. Heather Paul, CAO for the SLRD. Nothing new to report today. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to 4.2, information report, governance excellence initiative project.
Okay, that's.
Good, thank you. Good morning. My name is Raylene Rehill. I'm legislative coordinator here at the SLRD. I am here today to provide an information presentation to the Committee of the Whole as part of the Governance Excellence Initiative Project, the Procedure Bylaw Review. As background, the Policy Development and Review Committee received a staff report on July 29, which was attached as a link in the staff report, and it outlines the project approach, the project parts and phases, and the estimated milestones. This presentation is related to Project Part 1, the Educate phase. While some directors may be versed in municipal or regional district procedure bylaw, this Educate phase of the project aims to provide a foundational understanding of legislative, regional district, and SLRD contracts, fostering a similar starting place for all directors before you're invited to contribute input regarding the current bylaw via the online survey, which I will speak to in later slides. To support the review phases, staff will reference several resources, including the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and LGMA Bylaw Guide for Local Governments, the LGMA Clerks and Local Officers Handbook, the procedure bylaws of the 4 member municipalities, and recently updated procedure bylaws of other regional districts. So by drawing on these existing resources, staff will not be recreating a procedure bylaw from scratch. Rather, we will be leveraging all existing resources, including the established common practice, standards and templates that are all available out there, while at the same time ensuring the proposed bylaw reflects the board's input and priorities that are collected via the survey. So today, we will cover what is a procedure bylaw in British Columbia and what is it not. We'll provide examples of the most common procedure bylaw sections and also explain other common practice. You'll get a general overview of the current SLRD procedure bylaw, and we'll explain how the board will provide input via the survey. And before we wrap up, we'll provide information regarding our path to bylaw adoption and beyond. Next slide, please. So as a general overview of procedure bylaw in BC, both municipal councils and regional district boards are legally required to adopt a procedure bylaw. And a procedure bylaw is a tool used to establish shared expectations for rules for process, procedure, and the conduct during meetings. So it applies to the meetings of a council or a board, as well as their respective standing or select committees. So why? A procedure bylaw sets clear guidelines for important aspects of meetings, such as how they are conducted, how decisions are made and documented, how participants, including the public, are involved, and how logistical matters like meeting schedules and notices are managed. When applied effectively, the procedure bylaw promotes consistency and efficiency in meeting operations. It ensures transparency and accountability in decision-making, and it clarifies the roles and responsibilities for elected officials and local government staff. The how basically means the legal authority derived from 2 key pieces of legislation, the Community Charter and the Local Government Act, which establish the framework for governance and municipalities and regional districts. Next slide, please. So we've touched on what procedure bylaw is. It can also be helpful to touch on what it is not. It's not a policy document or a code. Since it is an adopted set of rules for meeting procedures, other policies, codes, or legislation may be referred to within the procedure bylaw, however, typically are not incorporated directly. This approach ensures that a policy code or piece of legislation, when it is amended, repealed, or replaced, the bylaw doesn't become overly complex, outdated, or challenging to manage. The same goes for other bylaws. A procedure bylaw is a distinct bylaw in its own. It may reference other bylaws, but for the reasons I just mentioned, again, they wouldn't be incorporated directly. A bylaw or the procedure bylaw does not address operational or administrative activities such as budgeting, staffing, or service delivery. So it's not a guide for day-to-day operations. And it should be mentioned that a procedure bylaw cannot really be one size fits all. It should be tailored to the unique governance structure and legal requirements of the specific government that it serves. The needs and expectations of municipalities and regional districts do vary. So a well-functioning procedure bylaw is one that reflects the unique local context, the practices, and the values. A procedure bylaw is a living document to be reviewed and amended as needed to keep pace with evolving governance practices, changes in law, or shifts in the organizational needs. So regular updates to ensure that the procedure bylaw remains relevant and effective should be done. Next slide, please. Okay, with respect to the layout and the structure of a procedure bylaw, it's common practice to use clear and concise headings and subheadings that logically organize the document, ensuring easy navigation of the bylaw for the public, staff, and the elected officials. And also simple, accessible, and gender-neutral language, ensuring that the bylaw is understandable to a broad audience, again, including the public. With respect to procedure bylaw content, it's common practice to provide clear definitions where technical or specialized terms are necessary to ensure clarity. As mentioned, it's common practice only to refer to other policies, bylaws, or laws. And however, that being said, it is common practice to find opportunity to embed less complex policy or legislation into the bylaw, eliminating the need for separate policy documents. So for an example, staff aim to ensure that all of the legislative requirements pertaining to electronic meetings and electronic participation are referred to in the proposed procedure bylaw. If adopted by the board, staff could recommend repealing the associated electronic meeting policies. The guidelines and legislations would still only be referred to in the bylaw, but since all of the relevant information could be found within the procedure bylaw, a separate policy document would no longer be necessary. Next slide. Okay, this slide shows common bylaw sections. It's not an exhaustive list. Other sections could also be included in the procedure bylaw, but these examples are the most commonly found across local governments in BC, and the provisions related to these sections are currently present in the SLRD procedure bylaw. So we're hoping that this is getting you thinking and that you're eager to dive into the survey. The survey format was selected to ensure that each director's input and detailed comments, if you choose to provide, can be well organized, they can be analyzed, and then they can guide staff recommendations that reflects the board's priorities. Next slide. Okay, this brings us to an overview of the current SLRD procedure bylaw 1499-2016. It was adopted in 2016 and has had 5 amendments pertaining to the delegation section in 2019, the committee section in 2019, quorum in 2020 and 2021, election of chair section in 2021, and the most recent was the notice and committee section in 2023. The review that we're currently undertaking is the first comprehensive review of the procedure bylaw since its adoption, so in 8 years. And we'd like to highlight that given the anticipated volume of changes to the proposed bylaw or to the current bylaw, such as reordering, renumbering, and simplifying the language, possibly condensing or expanding sections as needed, staff would be recommending a repeal and a replacement of bylaw 1499-16. This approach aims to streamline the process and ensure administrative clarity and ease. Next slide. Okay, now it's time to talk about the survey. So the survey is intended for the SLRD board members, and the survey goal is to collect high-level input and comments from the board regarding the effectiveness of the current procedure bylaw. Again, staff will analyze the survey responses to develop specific recommendations for a new bylaw, as mentioned, intended to repeal and replace. The survey design and methodology includes privacy considerations. Personal information will not be requested. Participation is voluntary and anonymous. All questions are relevant to the survey goal, and the question types will be a mix of multiple choice, checkbox, rating scale, and comment box, which are free type fields. To give you a better sense of what to expect from the survey, it's divided into 3 main sections: an opening, a section about specific bylaw provisions, and a closing. Only specific provisions where the legal requirement is somewhat flexible or silent, allowing the board to provide direction, are included in the survey. For an easy example, the current procedure bylaw prescribes that the board regular meeting will convene at 10:30, recess for lunch at 12:30, and reconvene at 1 o'clock. So the survey will ask the respondent, in their personal opinion, to rate the effectiveness of the current SLRD provision and also provide opportunity to add comments to support your rating if you desire. You will not need to reference the legal requirements during the survey. Just provide your thoughts on how effective you feel the current provision is. Is it working for you? Do you have comments? And then later, staff will jump in to do the legal requirement comparisons and bring that back to you. It's also important to note that the survey sections will include screenshots of the bylaw for reference. Again, so you don't need to be referencing and going back and forth, but it should be noted that small screens such as phones due to these screenshots might not be ideal for the survey. You'll be able to leave and return to the survey, however, only on the same device that you start the survey on, so choose wisely. And we're thinking that perhaps, even though all questions are not mandatory, so the respondent's time to complete will vary, but perhaps in approximately 30 minutes or so, but it can last as long as you need. Again, if you need to provide a lot of opportunity, that's all built into the survey. Will be available by December 20th and for responses till the 6th of Jan, and results will be summarized and made public in a future staff report. Next slide. Okay, this slide shows project part 2, which will kick off after specific bylaw recommendations are presented by staff to the Policy Review and Development Committee later in winter. Project part 2 phases include refinement of bylaw recommendations as needed based on legislative requirements, common practice, anecdotal feedback compiled to date, and of course, the survey results. In spring 2025, a board staff report will be presented requesting consideration of readings of the proposed bylaw. And pursuant to the Local Government Act, a procedure bylaw must not be amended, repealed, or substituted unless the board gives notice in accordance with Section 94 of the Community Charter, describing the proposed changes in general terms. So after 3 readings of the proposed bylaw, public notice, including access to the draft bylaw, will be provided. After the required notice period, a board staff report will be presented requesting consideration of the proposed bylaw for adoption by summer 2025. And if the bylaw is adopted, staff will make the bylaw available to the public and will provide the bylaw to the ministry as required. Next slide. So beyond adoption, meaning that the bylaw will be reviewed regularly as part of the corporate services work plan to ensure it meets the need of the board and the public, that it supports strong governance, that it aligns with internal policies and applicable legislation. As such, future amendments may be proposed either as required by legislation or at the request of the board. Next slide. Okay, to wrap up this presentation was intended again to be a shared foundation to move forward with and get you prepared to receive the board survey link. Again, we really look forward to receiving your feedback and your responses. We've built in lots of opportunity for specific input via the comments if it's desired. And we have also ensured a final free type field if there is additional comments that just didn't seem to neatly fit into another section of the survey. As well, there is contact information available on the survey if you need it while you're completing. During that period, you can reach out to staff. In summer 2025, we will come back to, in spring 2025, we will come back together again as the board considers the proposed bylaw. Staff aim to bring the board a very functional bylaw that captures your priorities. Thank you, everyone. That was the last slide, and staff are available for questions should you have any.
Great. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
Because I'm really interested in this, I went to our bylaw and reviewed it all and made a bunch of comments, so I will save those for the survey.
Really looking forward to receiving this.
Go ahead.
More of a request than a question, I guess, but can we have a multiple reminders about the survey once it goes out, because especially over the holidays, I will forget, but I do wanna, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Through the chair, we have a plan to ensure that it will be launched. We'll send you reminders. If you don't need them, you can ignore them. If you do, they're directed at you.
Technical protocols.
Does anyone have any questions for staff? Anyone on the screen? Is Jenna?
Jenna did log off.
Okay.
I think she's.
Great job, Raylene.
I've got a comment.
Hey, Tony, go ahead.
I'm looking forward to doing the survey, sitting by the side of a pool, with a margarita on the table next to me. That's my comment. I also have another comment I want to make. I'm just thinking that of that presentation that I've just listened to, and I listened to lots of presentations when I was teaching at SFU, and Raylene, I would be grading that as an A or an A+. It was an excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, well,
Would you like
you're
a
so
motion?
good that no one has any questions. Well done. Thank you, and thank you for the upcoming survey. This is well timed. Everyone has time to give it some thought. And I think, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the results. So with that, something
Would
like
you like a motion to receive? Yep.
Yeah.
So moved.
and seconded by Director Hopful. Further comments? No, okay, all in
Well
favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Raylene. Okay, moving along to chair's verbal. I have nothing to report today. I'll save that for actually, no, the one thing that I would like to bring forward, I think in light of this discussion, and given that yesterday we approved the board calendar, but in reflection last night and in just sort of in talking with people last night, I'm concerned about the tightness of the dates. And so I want to take that offline, but I wanted to share with the board that the EAD to second week of December board meeting, given that we still have kids are still in school next week, and just the compressed month of end of November to this week doesn't actually give our staff a whole lot of time to breathe and bring forward an agenda in December. I'm hoping that we can reevaluate the December meeting for next year. We did approve it to be the same week this time next year, which will be in the same situation next year. So I'm gonna put that forward for consideration of the board to reevaluate just that one date. Go ahead.
This may not be helpful, but well, just I think part of that also is that November date. Maybe there's just November, December just rolls differently in there. I don't know what is helpful in all the moving pieces, but
Yeah,
I totally see what you're saying, and maybe there's movement around that can help. And luckily it's far enough off that it should be easy enough to accommodate for the,
if we can
where we
nail it
can be with.
today,
yeah.
then we nail it for next year. So let's have that conversation. Russell, go ahead.
So why not just move everything, the EAD and the board 1 week further into December?
Yes.
Because then that there's a gap then between, well, the board meeting in November and the EAD meeting 3 days later.
Yeah,
So yeah, just move everything a week forward.
yeah. Lori, then, okay.
So that would put it December 17th and 18th, a
Yeah.
week before Christmas. Is there a possibility that we could just move November's a week earlier to the 12th and 13th and then keep December's where it is on the 10th or 11th? That would do 3 weeks still. It would still get the same time frame, but it would not be right the week before Christmas, right? It would be 3 weeks. Just an
Yeah.
option.
But we still have the EAD, so then that,
Still have
Oh, I
the-
see.
so
that backs
that's where-
everything up.
Yeah, so that's, I just, in my chair's verbal, I'm thinking out loud to say, can we have this discussion before we get into the open meeting and go ahead,
Thank you.
I'll come back to you, Jack.
I'm wondering if we can take this away for staff to figure out, hearing over what everything that's
Yeah.
said, and then bring something back next month. Like, we've already have we already passed? We have, so
We did, yeah,
amending it now or amending it in January, let's solve
doesn't
the
make a
problem.
difference,
Yeah.
okay, is that okay with everyone? Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, motion to receive the chair's verbal. Thank you, seconded by Director Herford, all in favor, any opposed, motion carries. Any late business for committee of the whole? Seeing none, I will call the question on, I will ask someone move adjournment of committee of the whole, moved by Director Bridgestone, seconded by Director Mack.
Oh,
Oh, too late, Tony.
yeah, well, snooze you lose.
Carries.
My new
Uh,
job, Director Rainbow.
Okay,